Have you ever wondered what dark secrets lie behind the walls of the UK's most famous celebrity homes? What if these grand estates held more than memories? What if they were truly haunted by restless spirits? 1. Dylan Thomas Boathouse. Nestled on the edge of the estuary in the quiet village of Lawfarn, Wales, stands a modest white building perched above the shore, known today as the Dylan Thomas Boathouse. It's peaceful, even picturesque, but don't let its serenity fool you. Some say the ghost of the great poet still wanders its narrow halls and never really left. There are no records of the house existing before 1834, when it was first leased to a family named Scourfield. The road it sits on was once known simply as Cliff Road, now fittingly renamed Dylan's Walk, in memory of the man who made this place immortal. Dylan Thomas, the beloved and troubled Welsh poet, first visited Lawfarn in 1934. 4 years later, he moved into the boathouse with his wife Caitlin, and eventually their 3 children. The house wasn't his at first. It was later purchased for him by Margaret Taylor, the wealthy wife of historian A.J.P. Taylor. From here, Dylan wrote, drank, dreamed, and declined. Though he lived in the boathouse, Dylan actually did most of his writing in a small shed just a short walk away, a quiet place that overlooked Sir John's Hill, which would later be immortalized in his poem Over Sir John's Hill. The view was perfect, too perfect perhaps. In 1953, Dylan died in New York under mysterious circumstances after a night of heavy drinking. He was just 39 years old. Caitlin, devastated and bitter, fled Lawfarn soon after, saying the town held nothing but grief. But that's when the stories began. Caretakers and visitors have reported strange sounds, footsteps on wooden floors when no one else was there. In the poet's former writing shed, pens and papers have reportedly shifted position overnight. One staff member swore she heard a man humming softly, only to find the room empty, save for an old photo of Dylan on the wall. Locals say his restless spirit still lingers, unable to leave the view, the words, the estuary that once gave him inspiration, and then took everything away. Even famed author Roald Dahl, inspired by the boathouse, built his own writing hut in its likeness. But while Dahl moved on, some say Dylan never did. So if you visit Lawfarn and walk along Dylan's Walk, pause by the boathouse. You might just hear a whisper of a line drifting across the water. Do not go gentle into that good night. 2. Shakespeare's Birthplace. On the busy Henley Street in Stratford-upon-Avon, tourists gather each day to see the most famous timber-framed house in England, the place where William Shakespeare, the greatest playwright of all time, is believed to have been born in 1564 and where he spent his early years. But beneath the centuries-old beams and creaking floorboards, some say there are ghosts older than the plays themselves. The house is a 16th-century half-timbered building, carefully restored to reflect the era Shakespeare lived in. It's filled with replicas of Tudor furniture, dim candlelight, and the smell of oak and wax polish. Thousands walk through its rooms each year, but not all leave with just photographs. One former night guard recalled the first time he closed up the house alone. As he turned the key in the main door, he heard footsteps from the upstairs bedroom, slow, deliberate, heavy. When he checked, there was no one, only a cold chill in the air and an open window, which he had locked just moments before. Another report comes from a visitor who paused in Shakespeare's childhood bedroom. She felt the undeniable sensation of someone breathing just behind her. When she turned, the room was empty, except for a slight indentation on the feather mattress, as if someone had just stood up and walked away. But perhaps the most unnerving tale comes from the study. a place where, it's said, young William would have read by candlelight. Multiple visitors have described seeing a shadowy figure sitting by the desk, unmoving, his face turned away. But when they look again, the figure is gone, and the candles flicker wildly as if gasping for air. Is it the bard himself, watching over his legacy? Or perhaps the echoes of the many souls who once passed through this home, long before fame turned it into a museum? Even the tour guides admit the house has moods. Some days, it welcomes you. Other days, it watches. So if you ever visit Shakespeare's birthplace, take your time, walk slowly, and if you feel the floorboards groan beneath you, listen closely. You may not be the only one treading that ancient wood. All the world's a stage, and this one may still have a cast that won't exit. 3. Chawton House. Tucked away in the peaceful Hampshire countryside lies Chorton House, a grand Elizabethan manor that has stood watch over the village of Chawton since 1580. This Grade 2 star-listed estate is best known as the home of Edward Austen Knight, the wealthy older brother of the celebrated novelist Jane Austen. Jane herself spent much of her adult life in nearby Chawton Cottage, but the grandeur of Chawton House was a familiar sight and place of significance to her family. The house, with its imposing stone walls and sprawling gardens, feels frozen in time, yet it harbors secrets darker than its serene facade might suggest. Visitors and staff alike have whispered about a quiet presence among the shelves of the vast library, where the scent of old, leather-bound volumes fills the air. Some have seen a faint shadow gliding between the stacks, as if a forgotten scholar still roams these halls seeking inspiration. Locals tell of strange murmurs and soft footsteps echoing through the corridors late at night, long after the manor's lights have been extinguished. It's said the apparition does not harm, but lingers, a silent guardian, or perhaps a restless soul unable to leave a place steeped in stories and history. Intriguingly, some believe the ghost to be that of a former resident or visitor from centuries ago whose life was tragically cut short, forever tied to the house's legacy. Jane Austen, whose novels often explore themes of social constraint and hidden emotions, might have found inspiration from this enigmatic atmosphere. And though the manor remained in private hands through the 20th century, those who have stepped inside say the house keeps its secrets close, and its spectral guest even closer. So, if you visit Chawton House, pause in the library's quiet corners. Listen to the whispers between the pages. You may just feel the presence of a reader from the past, someone who never quite left. There is no charm equal to tenderness of heart, but perhaps also a shadow of history that lingers quietly in the night. 4. The Old Rectory. In the quiet town of Epworth, Lincolnshire, stands the stately Old Rectory, a beautiful Queen Anne-style brick building rebuilt in 1709 after a devastating fire. It was home to the Reverend Samuel Wesley, his wife Susanna, and their remarkable family of 19 children. Among them was John Wesley, who would grow up to become the founder of Methodism. But beneath the calm exterior of this historic rectory lies a tale that has fascinated and terrified people for over 300 years. The infamous Epworth Rectory haunting. Between December 1716 and January 1717, the Wesley family found themselves besieged by mysterious and unsettling noises. Loud knocks, banging, and footsteps echoed through the house, often in the room above the family's heads. These unexplained sounds became so intense that the Wesleys began to believe they were caused by a restless spirit. The fourth eldest daughter, Hetty Wesley, affectionately nicknamed the unseen force Old Geoffrey, On Christmas Day, 1716, old Geoffrey made his presence especially known. Mrs. Wesley described it vividly. There was such a noise in the room over our heads, as if several people were walking, then running up and down stairs, that we thought the children would be frightened. The mysterious activity escalated, rattling, thundering, and even the blowing of an invisible horn at deafening volumes, as if old Geoffrey was making a grand, otherworldly announcement. Despite searching every corner of the house, the family could find no earthly explanation. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the haunting stopped in January 1717, leaving behind a mix of awe and unease. Over the centuries, skeptics have offered natural explanations: creaking floorboards, settling wood, or even deliberate trickery by the children. Some believe that the tales grew with time, shaped by the fallibility of memory and folklore. But for those who believe in the supernatural, old Geoffrey remains one of England's most famous poltergeists, a ghostly reminder of a time when the spiritual and physical worlds seemed to collide in that quiet rectory. If you ever find yourself walking through the old rectory's restored rooms, imagine the echoes of those footsteps, the invisible horn, and the presence that once made a well-ordered house into a stage for a haunting that history still remembers. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. But some things are felt, heard, and feared. 5. Buckland Abbey. Nestled in the lush countryside of Devon, Buckland Abbey stands as a testament to centuries of English history. Founded in 1278 by Amicia, Countess of Devon, this Cistercian abbey once flourished as a powerful religious house overseeing thousands of acres of land. Though the abbey was dissolved in 1539 during Henry VIII's reign, its stone walls, vaulted chapels, and ancient arches still speak of its monastic past. But it is not only history that lingers here. Many claim that Buckland Abbey is a place where the veil between past and present grows thin. Visitors and caretakers alike have reported unexplained footsteps echoing through the cloisters, even when the grounds are empty. Some have felt sudden chills near the vaulted transept chapel, where centuries ago, monks once knelt in prayer. One of the most eerie stories tells of a shadowy figure seen wandering the ruins late at night, believed by some to be the spirit of an abbot or one of the monks who never left the abbey's sacred grounds. Witnesses describe a tall, dark silhouette, sometimes disappearing into the stone arches or fading into the mist that often blankets the estate at dawn. The abbey's proximity to the dramatic English countryside only adds to its mystique. On stormy nights, the wind carries what some say are faint chants and whispers, as if the monks' prayers still echo through the hollow halls. Buckland Abbey is more than just a monument to history. It is a place where the past reaches out to the present, a spectral guardian of a vanished world. So when you walk among the stones of Buckland, keep your senses alert. You may catch a glimpse of history's shadows, or hear the whispered prayers of those who once called this abbey home. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. But at Buckland, the past never quite lets go. 6. Strawberry Hill House. Tucked away by the banks of the River Thames in Twickenham, Strawberry Hill House stands as a stunning testament to the Gothic revival style. Built in the 18th century by Horace Walpole, this little Gothic castle has enchanted visitors for over 250 years. Walpole, a man of letters and taste, famously penned the world's first Gothic novel, The Castle of Otranto, inspired by the very walls and turrets of Strawberry Hill. Yet behind the grand battlements and pointed arches lies a more mysterious tale, whispers of the supernatural that have become woven into the house's history. Many who have visited report an eerie sensation, as if unseen eyes are watching from the shadows cast by the stained glass and ornate woodwork. Some claim to hear soft footsteps echoing through the dimly lit corridors late at night, or catch fleeting glimpses of a ghostly figure cloaked in 18th century garb, drifting silently past the windows. There are stories of rooms suddenly turning cold, lights flickering without explanation, and ancient portraits whose eyes seem to follow visitors as they wander the grand halls. It's said that the spirit of an unknown former inhabitant, perhaps a servant or a guest, caught in some tragic event, still lingers, unable to rest in this Gothic wonderland. For Walpole, Strawberry Hill was a playground of imagination. But for those who walk its shadowed corridors, it is also a place where history, literature, and the supernatural quietly intertwine. So next time you visit Strawberry Hill House, remember, you're not just stepping into the birthplace of the Gothic novel, but perhaps into a story still being told by the spirits who haunt its walls. The world is a comedy to those that think, a tragedy to those that feel. And at Strawberry Hill, it may be both. 7. Handel and Hendrix House. On a quiet street in London, Brook Street holds a unique musical legacy. Here, two extraordinary artists from very different eras lived just a wall apart. At 25 Brook Street, the Baroque composer George Friedrich Handel crafted some of the world's most iconic music, including the legendary Messiah. Just next door, at 23 Brook Street, 2 centuries later, the rock legend Jimi Hendrix made his home, electrifying music history with his groundbreaking guitar riffs. But alongside this rich musical heritage, both homes are said to harbor echoes not only of melodies, but of spirits, the lingering presence of artistic passion that refuses to fade. Visitors to Handels House sometimes report hearing faint strains of harpsichord music drifting through the rooms, even when no instrument is played. Some have felt an invisible presence while standing near the very desk where Handel composed his masterpieces, as if the great composer's spirit still communes with the living through his music. Meanwhile, Hendrix's flat has its own stories. Neighbors and staff have whispered about seeing a shadowy figure resembling Hendrix, his unmistakable aura of rebellion and genius felt in the air long after he left. At times, the faint hum of guitar chords, as if strummed by an unseen hand, fills the otherwise silent rooms. It's as though these two musical innovators continue to share their space, separated by walls, but united by their lasting impact on the world, and perhaps by something otherworldly. Handel and Hendrix may have belonged to different centuries and styles, but in this small London street, the past and present, the classical and the electric intertwine, and the music plays on, beyond the boundaries of time and even life itself. Music is the mediator between the spiritual and the sensual life. And at Brook Street, it bridges the worlds of the living and the spirits of genius. Ban muon min viet tiep cao chuyen so tam, St. Catherine's Court, Bath Kong, 8 St. Catherine's Court, nestled quietly in a secluded valley north of Bath. St. Catherine's Court stands as a grand manor house with centuries of history etched into its very stones. Originally built as a priory grange for the monks of Bath Abbey, the house has witnessed the rise and fall of families, royal decrees, and dramatic transformations through the ages. From the 16th century, this estate passed through the hands of courtiers, aristocrats, and later, a British colonel who restored much of its grandeur. The house's walls have absorbed the lives of John Harrington, inventor of the first flushing toilet, to Colonel Joseph Holden Strutt and his family, who gave the manor its 19th century revival. Fast forward to the late 20th century, when actress Jane Seymour took ownership. Her love and care brought new life to St. Catherine's Court, but also a modern twist. The manor became a creative hub where famous bands like The Cure, Radiohead, and New Order recorded iconic albums, filling the ancient halls with music once again. Yet, with all its life, St. Catherine's Court holds whispers of the past, echoes of footsteps in empty corridors, the faint scent of old gardens after rain, and a lingering presence that locals say feels like the watchful eyes of long-gone residents. Neighbors have told of occasional unexplained noises, especially during late-night events or recording sessions, as if the house still remembers every secret and celebration it has hosted for over 400 years. The house's rich tapestry of history, from monks to musicians, inventors to actors, creates a unique atmosphere where time seems to fold, and where the past, present, and something a little mysterious meet. In the quiet corners of St. Catherine's Court, the spirit of history lingers, inviting visitors to feel the pulse of lives once lived, and perhaps hear a ghostly melody carried by the Somerset breeze. 9. Valance House. Valance House, nestled in Dagenham, traces its roots back to the 13th century, making it one of the oldest surviving houses in the UK. Named after the influential de Valance family, wealthy nobles from the French province of Valence, it has seen centuries of history unfold within its walls. The estate passed through the hands of the Dean and Chapter of Windsor for nearly 400 years before becoming church property in the 19th century. Among its notable residents was Timothy Lucy, brother to Sir Thomas Lucy, a man forever linked with the Shakespearean legend. Despite its grand history, Valance House harbors chilling tales whispered by locals. Visitors and residents alike have reported strange footsteps echoing through empty hallways at night, sudden cold drafts that freeze the air, and the eerie creak of doors opening by themselves. Shadows flicker just beyond the corner of the eye, vanishing when looked at directly. Some say these are the restless spirits of former occupants, noble souls trapped between worlds, watching silently over the house. On moonlit nights, those brave enough to linger near the windows speak of a cold presence, a weight on their chest, and an unshakable feeling of being watched. The house seems to breathe with the memories of its past, its walls holding secrets that refuse to be forgotten. Time here feels distorted, as if the past and present bleed into one another in the dim glow of twilight. Valance House is more than a historical landmark. It is a haunting reminder that some echoes of history refuse to fade, forever imprinted in the shadows of a venerable old manor. 10 Croft, an elegant timber-framed house dating back to 1613, was once home to Susanna Shakespeare, William Shakespeare's daughter, and her husband, Dr. John Hall. For a brief few years, the couple lived here before moving to New Place shortly before the bard's death in 1616. Over the centuries, the house has changed hands many times, witnessing centuries of history, secrets, and stories whispered through its walls. Yet behind its stately facade, Croft holds a darker presence. Locals and visitors have long reported an unsettling chill in the air as they walk the creaking floors. Strange shadows flicker near the oak staircase, and soft murmurs seem to echo through the empty rooms, as if the house itself is murmuring forgotten tales. Some believe the restless spirit of Susanna still lingers here, quietly watching over the home where her family once lived. Others speak of fleeting glimpses of a robed figure drifting silently through the corridors, vanishing as soon as one tries to look directly. The old wooden panels sometimes groan inexplicably, and on stormy nights, unexplained knocks rattle the ancient windows. In the 19th century, the house served as a boarding school, its halls filled with the laughter of children, but also whispered fears of a ghostly presence watching from the shadows. Fires in the cellar and sudden cold drafts only deepened the eerie atmosphere. After the school closed, many notable occupants claimed to sense something beyond the ordinary. Restored and preserved by the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust, Hall's Croft now stands as a living monument to England's greatest playwright. But even as tourists stroll its historic rooms, some leave with a sense that the house remembers more than just Shakespeare's legacy. It remembers the souls who never quite left. As night falls over Stratford-upon-Avon, the whispers rise once again, carried on a cold breeze that slips through the ancient rafters. Hall's Croft remains a silent guardian of secrets, where history and hauntings intertwine in the shadows of the past. Which haunted home gave you the chills? Drop a comment, like the video if you enjoyed it, and share it with someone who loves a good ghost story. Don't forget to subscribe for more eerie adventures, only on Creepy Experience.